my 5-minute reflection on the subject construction in developing communities. I have broken up this reflection into 5 different parts. So firstly, the preparation and pre-departure. I prepared myself to go to Cambodia in a few different ways. So firstly was through the first group assignment for the subject, which was mainly just research based. This gave both me and my group a really good insight into Cambodia's lifestyle. So we were able to learn about Cambodia's history, about its people. We also conducted a really thorough risk assessment and we completed an evacuation plan. So we were fully prepared when we would be over there. And of course, because we conducted our risk assessment, we were able to pack appropriately and do the appropriate preparations before we left, such as getting vaccinations, making sure we had a decent first aid kit, making sure that our clothes were appropriate for the weather. We were super organized when we were doing the assignment. We split up everything into sections. We finished in a reasonable amount of time. It was also compulsory to go to a build workshop, and this was really good just to prepare ourselves for what we would be facing when we went to Cambodia, and they spoke a lot about homesickness and how to deal with that. It was a good general preparation for pretty much if you were going anywhere in Asia. It wasn't as specific as the research assignment we did for Cambodia. So the second part of this reflection is going to be focusing on the Cambodia build itself. So I went in to this build not really knowing what I was going to be doing, because I was put in the postgraduate group and the assignment we did at the beginning was based on the normal bamboo style house that we had planned for. So I wasn't sure what to expect, what we were doing. But honestly, I am so glad that I was put in that group because I have learnt so much. We built everything to Australian standards, which meant that the house was very strong, very stable. Because none of the students other than the postgraduates knew what was going on when we first got there, it took a little bit of time to get used to what we were actually going to be doing. So they had to brief us very thoroughly about the time frame, what the stages of construction were, and just how we were going to actually build the house. I was able to apply a lot of what I learned in the subject Construction Technology 1 in this subject, because I was actually able to use what I learned in theory in that subject in practice in real life, which was so good, and it was so much fun as well. The work breakdown structure of the postgraduate build was very similar to the one that we created for the normal build. So the work breakdown structure was broken up into 5 sections. The first part was site layout. It then went to foundations, the structure, the roof, and then the cladding. On the build, the weather went from one extreme to another all the time. So in the morning, it would be so hot. But then at midday for most of the days, it would start pouring down rain. So we'd have to stop working for about 45 minutes until it got safer for us to work because it got very slippery. So the build took a little bit longer than what we actually thought it would. We didn't get to finish, which was really disappointing. The reason why we didn't finish, I think, is because we didn't come prepared for what sort of tools we would have. First off, we were using hardwood, which was extremely hard to nail into. And we didn't have a large amount of power tools either. Right from the first day, we didn't have a drill that was strong enough to drill through the concrete piers. So we were waiting around for about 3 hours not doing anything because there was nothing else we could do. This meant for some of the days we actually stayed back a little bit past 2 o'clock so that we could try and finish the project, except unfortunately that didn't happen. So I was pretty impressed for how far we got considering all the delays that we experienced during the build. The timeline that was created during the group assignment was kind of not very useful because on the postgraduate project we had a different lot of steps that we had to undertake even though the work breakdown structure was similar. We were able to use the timeline as a very brief basis of what we had to do each day. We had a toolbox talk every morning with Andrew, so he explained what our objectives were for the day. He split us up into different groups, so each group had their own specific goal for that day. The third part of this reflection is Cambodia as a whole and what it was like being in a developing country. Because I have been to Asia before, it wasn't too much of a culture shock for me. I'm not going to lie, from the research that we did in the first assignment, I thought the risk assessment was a bit exaggerated. I took everything as a precautionary warning, but I didn't really think it was actually going to happen. Except on our second day, when myself and some of the girls were in a tuk-tuk, we actually saw a drive-by theft occur, and all of our phones were just sitting on our laps because we didn't think anything was going to happen to us. So that was a really good wake-up call for us. From that point onwards, We made sure that we were being responsible with our belongings and that we weren't just leaving them around. I also didn't expect to be scammed as much in Cambodia. One of the examples of this is we were on a tuk-tuk and we had agreed on a price before we left the place. But when we got to our destination, he said a different price, which was much higher. And those scams are just really hard to avoid and there's not much we can do about it. There was a lot more Western food available than what I thought there would be, which was really good because sometimes I just wanted a break from traditional Cambodian food. The traditional Cambodian food that we got served wasn't too different to what we could get in Sydney. So most of the food that I tried over there, I had already had in Sydney before. It was super helpful that the uni actually organised a trip going to the killing fields. Otherwise, I feel like most of us wouldn't have got around to actually understanding the history of Cambodia. So we're now up to expectations versus reality. The first thing that is extremely obvious is the amount of mosquitoes. I came prepared to Cambodia with about 5 bottles of DEET and I didn't even go through one because there weren't any mosquitoes at our construction site. There weren't any mosquitoes in the hotel and I didn't get bitten once, so that was really surprising. The physical labor wasn't as intense as what I thought it would be because I was prepared to be doing things the entire time. But in reality, it wasn't as strenuous as what I thought it would be because there were only so many things people could do at a time. But because of that, we did get to experience a little bit of everything. So if we had finished sanding, we would go and ask if we could help with the nailing or if we could go help with the chiseling of the wood. So we got experience in pretty much every aspect of building a house, which was really, really valuable, and I feel like I'm going to be using all this knowledge that I've got from this Cambodia build in subjects for university and also in real life. During our research for the assignment, we wrote that we weren't supposed to drink drinks with ice in it because they just use the tap water to freeze the ice. However, it was really hard to avoid having ice, so eventually I sort of caved in and I just had some ice. And I thought I was going to get sick from it, except I didn't get sick once when I was in Cambodia, and I had so much ice. We were also prepared for some political unrest because of the unstable political situation in Cambodia currently, except we didn't see any protests, we didn't see any government related activities at all. So in that aspect, I felt very safe. During class, Michael said that everything was very cheap, except I didn't realise how cheap it was going to be. For every meal, I probably spent about $4 Australian, which is absolutely amazing. Me trying to barter was really interesting because I feel like because I'm so white, they wouldn't actually change the price for me, which is kind of annoying. So all my bartering efforts not once worked, and I bought about 10 different things at the markets. And not once did they change the price. So I don't know if it was just me, or if I'm just not very good at bartering, or if I just look too much like a tourist. So the last expectation isn't really an expectation, it was kind of just what I was thinking about when I was in Australia. So I went over to Cambodia not knowing anyone in the subject group, which was kind of daunting because this was the first time I was traveling alone. Now that I'm looking back on it, I think not knowing anyone has made me much more independent and I'm more confident meeting new people because I was forced to go and talk to people instead of just sticking to my regular group. So with that, I was able to make so many new friends. I was able to expand my network. So now I know people in construction project management from different years. So that means already now in second year, I have connections within the industry. The last part now is just about the conclusion and my overall thoughts on the trip to Cambodia and the subject itself. I just want to start off saying 5 days was not long enough. I enjoyed every single minute of it. Like, this has 100% been the best subject I have done at university. And I wish there were more subjects like this because I learned so much in such a short period of time. Pretty much everything that I learned in Construction Technology 1 over the entire semester, I learned within the 5 days there. I loved how that we were able to both learn about construction on the build, but we were also able to experience Cambodia as a country, and we had time after the build every day to go and visit spots in Cambodia. If there was one thing that I could change about the subject though, would be that the group that we were in for the group assignment at the beginning of the subject should be the group that we stay with during the build, especially with the postgraduate group, because even though I'm happy that I was in that group, in our assignment we had a whole timeline of what person was going to be doing what steps. So I feel like the build probably could have gone a little bit faster if we were in the same groups as the group assignment, because we had already split up our roles and responsibilities for the actual build. Also, I just want to say thank you to both Michael, if you're watching this, and Andrew. It was such an amazing subject and I loved literally every single minute of it. I learned so much and it was absolutely amazing. So thanks for organizing everything.